Assalamualaikum and welcome to a new video in the talk series. In today's video we are going to write something and we are going to have a short story. Now, to make things clear, our story is about three characters. The two main characters are, let's say, they go to the third one later on, but for a start we've got the first guy called Khuzaymah bin Bishr, and he's a guy with a hat. The second guy is Ikrim al-Fayyad, and he's a guy with a turban, let's say, and a beard. And the third guy, which we will come to later, is someone with a cone on his head or like something, and his name is Sulaiman bin Abdul Malik. So we've got Sulaiman bin Abdul Malik and Khuzaymah bin Bishr and Ikrim al-Fayyad. So these are our three main characters, and the story starts with Khuzaymah. Now Khuzaymah bin Bishr was a very generous guy. He would go out of his way to help people in need by giving them money or offering them help, and he was very, very generous. And this story was mentioned in several books, including Thamarat al-Awraq and another book called Al-Mustajad min Fa'alat al-Ajwad. So, as we said, Khuzaymah was a very generous guy, and he would help people in need, and that was him. He kept doing this until with time things got really bad for him. And both Khuzaymah and Ikrimah were in Medina. So it was back in the time where the main caliphate, center was in Palestine, and those two were in Medina. And Ikrimah was the emir of the wali of that region, so he was basically the governor. So Ikrimah kept giving people money and helping them until one day he realized that he has no money at all. During that, he would actually sort of borrow money from people, and those who he helped throughout years started to show that they got bored of him, because now he doesn't have any money with him and he's basically getting really poor. So he went back home and told his wife that he's not going out because people are being bored of him, because of course people change. And after they realized that he's not wealthy anymore, they said, well, we don't need him. Staying at his home, our other friend Ikrim al-Fayyad, which was the governor, asked after him, and he was like, where is Khuzaymah? And people told him, well, he's in really bad shape and he is overdue, and he decided to stay home. He doesn't want to go out. At that point, Ikrimah realized that this can't be right, because he knew that Khuzaymah was a really good guy. He helped a lot of people, and it's unfair for him to be left out after all these years of being generous and helpful. So one night, he called on one of his servants, asked him to prepare a horse for him, and told the guards not to follow him. And he left. He went straight to Khuzaymah's house and asked the servant to stay away, because he doesn't want him to know what he's exactly doing. Then he knocked on the door of Khuzaymah, and of course he was covering his face so that Khuzaymah wouldn't know who he was. After that, Khuzaymah opened the door. He found a guy, and that guy gave him a sack of things. Khuzaymah could feel that they were like golden dinars. He didn't expect that, of course. So he held on the horse of Ikrimah, and he was like, who are you? He refused at the beginning to tell him his name, but then he said, I beg you, tell me who are you? Because Ikrimah told him, I haven't came in the darkest of nights to end up telling you who am I. I am not going to tell you who am I. He said, please tell me who you are. And he told him, أنا جابر عثرات الكرام. I am a helper for those generous people who got in a bad shape. So basically, he's a person who helps those who helped others in the time of their need. He said, Zidni, tell me more about you. He said, that's it. And he went off back to his residency. Now, we will come back to Khuzaymah, but Ikrimah, when he went back to his house, or his residency, his wife asked the guards, where did he go? They told him, we don't know. Now, she got really worried about him. And when he came back, she asked him to tell her where he went. He said, I'm not saying that. She said, listen, it's not an option. You have to tell me. He said, well, there's this guy called Khuzaymah and this happened to him. So I went to his place and gave him some money. Now, this some money was 4,000 golden dinars. Now, this 4,000 in today's money is about $950,000. So that you could see how big of a value the dinars were back then. So, but he asked his wife not to tell anyone about it. He wants it to stay a secret. Back to Khuzaymah's house, he went inside and he told his wife, oh look, we've got help, and asked her to light something up because they want to see what's in the bag. She told him that they don't even have a light. So he had to feel what's inside, and by the feeling he realized that they were golden dinars. And of course he was happy. Next day he went out, he paid back his debts for people who sort of borrowed him some money, although they were like not really nice to him. And he decided to go and visit Sulaiman ibn Abd al-Malik in Palestine, because that was the caliphate sort of residency. And Sulaiman ibn Abd al-Malik knew about Khuzaymah because he was a famous guy, and when Khuzaymah came in, he sort of allowed him to enter the palace, and he asked after him. He was like, Khuzaymah, where have you been? I mean, we missed you. You used to visit us. What's wrong? He told him, well, this and this happened. I got in a really bad shape and people really didn't help me. But one night, someone knocked on the door, gave me 4,000 golden dinars and left. The caliphate was like, who's this guy? Tell me about him. I want to honor him with something. He said, well, he didn't tell me his name, but all what he told me that he was Jabiru Atharat al-Kiram, that he's a person who helps the noble people when they fall down. The caliphate was really happy, really pleased with Khuzaymah, because he knew that he was a nice person, a generous person, and a just person. So he told him, well, listen, what I will give you the wilaya, which is basically, let's say, the ruling of Al-Hijaz. Now here, Khuzaymah talking to Sulaiman, who's the boss of Ikrimah, and Sulaiman decided to give Khuzaymah Ikrimah's job. So Ikrimah came back to Hijaz, and with a letter, of course, saying that he was the king now, or the governor now. He asked Ikrimah to come in and do the accounts to see how much money, like to hand over. They found that Ikrimah had some accounts unfilled, so Ikrimah was in debt. So he asked him to pay the money back because it was like governmental money. Ikrimah said, I don't have the money. So Khuzaymah decided to jail Ikrimah, and back, I think it still happens, back at that during those times, they would put him in a jail until he pays off the debt. So he put shackles on Ikrimah's feet and hands and threw him in the jail. That was hard for Ikrimah, because Ikrimah still did not tell Khuzaimah that he's the one who helped him. Now, after a whole month of Ikrimah being in a really bad shape in prison, his wife, she couldn't handle it. She was like, this shouldn't be happening to Ikrimah. And she asked one of her servants to go to Khuzaimah, which is now the governor, and to speak to him in person. No one should hear what they are talking about. So the servant came to Khuzaimah and asked him for a private word. He allowed them, and the servant told him, do you know who's in your custody? He was like, who? She said, Jabiru Atharat al-Kiram. And he was like, oh, for God's sake, my nemesis is this guy, the guy who helped me in my darkest times. And he went straight to the, let's say, the hierarchy or the nobles of the Medina, and he asked them to follow him to the prison. And then he went into the jail, seeing that Ikrimah was in a really bad shape after a month of being tied and, prisons. And he couldn't believe it, so he immediately went in, tried to, of course, kissing his feet and his hands and all that thing and asking for forgiveness. And he sort of, not tied, but he put the shackles on his feet instead of Ikrimah's, like freed him, and he was like, I'm sorry for doing this to you, and I deserve worse than this. He begged him not to do that, but yeah, he went and apologized to his wife and all that sort of thing to try and fix things, because it was a mistake. And Khuzaimah wasn't wrong for putting Ikrimah in jail, because Ikrimah did have some minus accounts, so they have to get the money from someone. But at the same time, he didn't know who was that guy. So after realizing who is Jabir Atharat al-Kiram, which turned out to be Ikrimah, Khuzaimah knew that Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik asked him to immediately tell him who was this guy who helped him in his darkest times. So he immediately left Hijaz and went to Palestine, although it's not something that they would do. So for example, if he had an issue, he would contact the Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik and ask him to come and visit him, because he shouldn't just leave his territory and move to visit the guy. So Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik was really worried, like this is a big deal, because he left his position and came straight to me. So he immediately allowed him in, and he asked him, what's wrong? He said, I got you Jabir Atharat al-Kiram. It turned out to be Ikrimah al-Fayyad. And at that point, Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik gave Ikrimah around $2.5 million, which is 10,000 golden dinars. And he, instead of the Hijaz, he gave him Hijaz, Armenia, and Azerbaijan to be the ruler of. And he asked him, what should we do with Khuzaimah? Because Khuzaimah, yeah, he did put him in prison. But he said, nah, nothing. He didn't know about any of it, because I did not tell him who am I. So this is a story about generosity and how it saves people. Now, what we can take out of it, not us being like Khuzaimah, going in debt by helping people. I mean, it was his guy, it was his thing. He didn't mind it. So it's different nowadays. Neither be like Ikrimah, which again, it's a really noble thing to do, but different times. It's about being generous in general. So in calligraphy, you will notice that with time you will end up meeting people who are interested in the same thing, and you meet up to showcase some artwork. It's really nice for you to offer something for those people. Don't hold on your pens and inks. Like, they are important for you, but at the same time, honor someone by giving them some of your personal pens. If you had like 5 pens, you could give away 1 or 2. It's fine. You could get let's say, get others in the future. But the thing here that I wanted to talk about is generosity and how it never ends bad for someone. لا يذهب العرف بين الله والناس. So don't be sort of cheap and be like, oh, these tools are mine, I can't find the tools easily, I'm not gonna, like, you keep checking and, oh, give me back the pen and all that sort of things. Like, you should have pens for you to write, but at the same time, if you saw someone who was struggling with achieving some pens or a type of ink and you know that you could get more of it, or not, just give them the pen or something like that, because it's in the, let's say they desire it, so it would be nice for you to just be generous and give them something that they really want. And with that, there's also a saying of Ibn Abbas, the Sahabi, in Kitab Uyun al-Akhbar, where he says, صاحب المعروف لا يقع فإن وقع وجد متكئا. The person who have good deeds for other people and sort of offer helps for them, he doesn't fall. If he fell, he will find something to be sheltered with. So this is what I wanted to talk to you about, which is not being cheap. If you had a chance to give people, just do it, because time goes around and you might end up in a situation that you need help yourself. Now, before we end the video, by the way, what's written here is Jabiru Atharat al-Kiram, the guy who helps, or a person who helps the noble if they were in need. Someone asked for the word Afghanistan to be written in Farsi, in a simple way and in a nice way. So we've got two options for this one. The first one would be the normal nastaliq, which is alif, fa, ghin, and alif. The dots here, you have the option of using them sort of curved or whatever. And now we have a noon where you go up a bit because you have a sin and a ta, then an alif. Again, with regards to the full thickness and half thickness, you need to be careful of that. And here we have a ta, and finally we have a noon, which comes over here. Make sure that your alifs are going right. Yeah, it's not a straight alif, it's going to the right. This is the normal Farsi, the nastaliq. Now there's the shakista or the shaksita, which I really like. We might go into it in the future, and that style has a different noon, which I really adore. So alif, and for this one I'm going to separate the word Afghan from the word Stan, because I think Stan means region, so it's the Afghan region. And this way I want to do something, because the noon here is different. So we have the fa, ghin, and the noon is basically going all the way down, then back. So this is the noon in the shaksita or shakista. Then I'm coming back with a scene from here, a ta, then something like this. Then I'm going to do another noon that is going down, then back, and here's the dot for the noon. So there you go. You've got two ways of writing Afghanistan. One is very simple and basic, the other one is pretty. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and see you in the next one. Have a lovely day and goodbye.